Hello and welcome to GameGen. So, if you're like me and you can't resist a good city builder, whether it's designing the perfect road layout, watching tiny citizens live their stressful little lives, or just building a beautiful skyline for absolutely no reason, then 2026 is looking really exciting. Anyway, let's get into it. City Masterplan. City Masterplan feels like it was made for people who love city building games, but always get annoyed when the roads feel too gamey and the city looks like a toy set. This one is going all in on realism, and it's not shy about it. The biggest difference is the 1-to-1 scale, meaning everything is built at realistic size. A skyscraper actually takes up the space that a skyscraper should, and driving from one side of your city to the other doesn't feel like a 10-second shortcut. It makes planning way more intense, because suddenly distance, terrain, and commute time actually matter. And with the terraforming tools, you're not just flattening the map like a lazy god. You're carving rivers, shaping coastlines, and dealing with elevation like a real engineer. But the real star here is the road and transit system. This isn't just drag road, connect, done. You can tweak lane widths, adjust intersections, and even mess with traffic signal timing. It's the kind of game where you'll spend 30 minutes fixing one junction and somehow enjoy it. On top of that, the economy is detailed and a bit scary, but in a good way. Industries need real supply chains, zoning depends on land value and pollution, and taxes can be adjusted by district to shape how different areas develop over time. And since utilities like power and sewage require proper layout instead of simple coverage bubbles, you're constantly thinking ahead instead of just expanding randomly. It's the type of game that makes city building feel less like decorating and more like actually designing a functioning city. Corsair Cove. Corsair Cove is basically a city builder that asks a very important question. What if your cozy little settlement was a full-on pirate fortress clinging to cliffs like it's trying not to fall into the ocean? Set during the final years of the golden age of piracy, the game puts you in charge of building a Corsair haven from scratch. Except you're not working on nice flat land. Instead, you're building vertically across hilltop and cliff faces, meaning your settlement can stretch upward and outward in really wild ways. It feels less like building a town and more like constructing a chaotic pirate ant colony. Of course, it's not just about looks. You'll be managing production chains, gathering raw materials, converting them into goods, and making sure everything reaches the right distribution points. The twist is that logistics become a real challenge when your city is basically a tangled mess of height differences. That's where bridges, ziplines, and all kinds of pirate contraptions come in, letting you move resources across ridiculous distances. As your pirate society grows, you'll need to recruit specialists to build a stronger armada, and those higher class crew members won't be satisfied with basic supplies. Then comes the fun part, sending your ships out into the sea for events, risk-reward choices, and turn-based naval battles against the crown. No confirmed story mode is out yet, but the setting already screams survival, rebellion, and pirate chaos. Release is expected sometime in 2026. Frostpunk 1886. Frostpunk 1886 is basically Frostpunk 1, but rebuilt like a brutal survival remake that actually wants to hurt you emotionally all over again. You're still the captain of New London, still staring at that giant generator like it's your last god on Earth, and the core loop is the same. Keep the city warm, keep people fed, and somehow stop society from collapsing every time the temperature drops another 20 degrees. Coal is still your lifeline, and if you mess up your heat management, people don't just complain, they freeze, get sick, and die. Classic Frostpunk behavior. Resource management is still stressful, but in the best way. You'll be juggling coal, steel, wood, and food while deciding if you want to rely on exhausted workers or expensive automatons that never sleep. And of course, the Book of Laws returns, meaning you'll once again face decisions that sound reasonable until you realize you're basically signing your soul away for 10% more efficiency. But the big deal is that 1886 is more than just a visual upgrade. It's rebuilt in Unreal Engine 5, so everything looks colder, harsher, and more cinematic. You can also zoom in much closer to citizens, giving it a more personal, watch them suffer up close vibe. There's also a brand new purpose path alongside Faith and Order, new narrative events, expanded tech, including airships, and finally, official mod support, meaning the community is going to turn this game into an endless blizzard of custom suffering. So yeah, it's Frostpunk again, but smarter, prettier, and probably even crueler. I'll be covering more games just like this one, so if that's your kind of thing, come hang out and subscribe. STARHOME. STARHOME is basically a survival city builder, except your city isn't on a planet. It's a fleet of ships drifting through space, and you're the one trying to keep the last pieces of humanity alive long enough to find a new home. The whole vibe feels very Battlestar Galactica. Your world is already gone, so this isn't a game about expanding for fun or building a glorious empire. It's about making brutal choices when you don't have enough fuel, food, or oxygen, and every mistake actually sticks. Instead of placing buildings on land, you're building modules inside ships. Living quarters, factories, power systems, oxygen scrubbers, farming units. Everything has to fit into tight ship layouts, and it quickly turns into a puzzle of efficiency. The cool part is that each ship becomes its own little neighborhood, so your fleet starts to feel like a moving space city. But STARHOME isn't purely management. Combat and exploration happen in real time, and you'll constantly be running into scavengers, hostile factions, and weird cosmic threats. And unlike most RTS games, losing a ship isn't just a setback, it's permanent damage to your entire run. If you lose a key cruiser or a vital support ship, your future options shrink fast. On top of that, the game throws narrative decisions at you, like whether to rescue refugees or ignore them to protect your limited supplies. It's the kind of game where you can win battles and still lose, because your people ran out of oxygen. HistoriCity, Florence. HistoriCity Florence is a city builder that doesn't just throw you into a sandbox and say, good luck, but actually gives you a story-driven rebuilding journey. And honestly, the setting is pretty brutal. You're rebuilding Florence right after the Black Plague, so the game starts with the city basically being a haunted shell of what it used to be. Your job is to turn that disaster zone into a thriving Renaissance powerhouse. One of the coolest things here is how it handles workers. Instead of managing everything through boring menus, you assign labor directly through this job wheel system hovering over buildings. It makes your workforce feel more local and hands-on, like you're constantly juggling who should farm, build, or craft depending on what the city needs right now. You'll be dealing with droughts, food shortages, and general chaos, but later the threats shift into cultural and political drama, like the Bonfire of the Vanities, where your progress can literally be threatened by ideology. The long-term goal is huge, rebuilding legendary landmarks like the Florence Cathedral, and even hiring historical masters like Michelangelo to boost your city with unique bonuses. Housing also gets surprisingly deep, with up to 9 upgrade tiers, and citizens demanding luxury stuff like meat and fancy goods once they start leveling up. With grid-free building, blueprint planning, and a Renaissance soundtrack that somehow feels cozy and depressing at the same time, this game looks like a mix of survival struggle and historical city-building ambition. Copa City. Copa City is basically a football game, for people who don't care about the football part. Instead of managing players, formations, and transfers like Football Manager, this one puts you in charge of everything happening around the match. Your real enemy isn't the rival team. It's traffic jams, overcrowded fan zones, and thousands of people all trying to get a hot dog at the exact same time. The main gameplay loop is all about preparing a city to survive match day. You'll be zoning areas for fan gatherings, setting up food courts, merch stands, and making sure the whole place actually functions when the crowd arrives. And yeah, you'll quickly realize that building a stadium is the easy part. Keeping the city from collapsing is the real challenge. Money also plays a huge role. You negotiate with real licensed clubs like Bayern Munich or Arsenal, and each club brings its own fan culture and expectations. Some crowds are calmer, others are chaotic, and you'll need to plan differently depending on who's coming. You'll earn income through tickets, partnerships, and upgrades, but your budget and time are limited, so every decision matters. Then comes match day, the big stress test. Suddenly, everything happens in real time. A subway breaks down, crowded bottleneck, fan zone overcrowded. You'll be reacting on the fly, trying to stop the whole event from turning into a disaster. What makes Copa City really interesting is that it's not a forever city builder. It's more like solving intense event puzzles in different real-world cities, which keeps it fresh and focused. Ant Colony, Wild Forest. Ant Colony Wild Forest is a colony management game where you build an entire ant empire from scratch, but in a way that feels surprisingly realistic. You start off as a single queen, and from that point on, your whole goal is simple. Keep her alive, keep the colony fed, and slowly turn a tiny underground hole into a massive insect kingdom. If the queen dies, it's game over, so everything you do feels important. This isn't a typical RTS where you click units and micromanage every movement. Instead, the ants behave more like an actual colony. You set priorities, lay down trails, and shape the nest's structure, while the workers and soldiers carry out their roles automatically. It feels less like commanding an army and more like guiding a living organism. As your colony grows, you unlock different ant types with specialized traits. Workers focus on gathering food and digging, while soldier ants handle defense and raids. Over time, you can upgrade your colony genetically, improving speed, strength, carrying capacity, and survival potential. The nest itself becomes a strategic project as well, since tunnel layouts and chamber placement can make the difference between a thriving colony and a wipeout. And of course, the forest isn't peaceful. You'll be sending swarms to hunt insects, fight predators, and clash with rival colonies. Watching hundreds of ants overwhelm a giant beetle or drag massive food back underground is honestly the main appeal. It's chaotic, strategic, and super satisfying to watch unfold. Citystate Metropolis. Citystate Metropolis honestly feels like the series finally decided to stop being politics first, city second, and just fully embrace the fun part, actually designing a city that looks and feels real. The biggest change is the new gridless zoning system, and it's kind of a game changer. Instead of placing boring square blocks like in Citystate 2, you can redraw zones in any shape you want, curving along coastlines, wrapping around highways, or fitting neatly into weird terrain. And because the buildings are procedurally generated, they'll automatically reshape themselves to fit whatever crazy zoning footprint you create, which should make cities look way more organic. Another big shift is that the game is clearly leaning into a city painter vibe. The heavy political micromanagement from older entries has been toned down, with things like inequality, gentrification, and land values still existing, but more as background systems instead of a constant slider babysitting. Instead, you get more creative control: height limits, density, building setbacks, even parking requirements. It's basically like being an architect with a god complex. Performance-wise, the game uses a crowd-based simulation, meaning it doesn't track every citizen individually. That's how it can handle cities with over 1 million in population without your PC crying for help. And the map tools look seriously upgraded as well, with huge realistic maps and dynamic water simulation that actually flows. Transport Fever 3. Transport Fever 3 is taking everything people love about the series, trains, logistics, city growth, and endless optimization, and pushing it into a much bigger, deeper, and more realistic transport sandbox. The main loop is still the classic Transport Fever addiction. You start small with basic wagons and steam trains, then slowly evolve into a ridiculous global empire filled with high-speed rail, cargo ships, and airplanes. The fun part is watching your tiny transport lines turn sleepy villages into massive cities just because your logistics are running smoothly. But this time, the economy side looks way deeper. Cargo chains are getting redesigned with things like warehouses and industry boosters, which means you'll have more control over how goods flow. Instead of just dumping everything into one line and hoping it works, maintenance also matters more now. So if you ignore your fleet, you're actually going to feel it in costs and efficiency. Visually, the day-night cycle and dynamic weather are a big deal. Even if it doesn't change gameplay much, it's going to make building rail networks at sunset feel way more cinematic. Maps are also more interesting thanks to seamless biome transitions, which should make every region feel more natural instead of random patches of desert next to snow. And the construction tools sound like a huge upgrade. Better road shaping, custom intersections, lane management, train priorities, and even underground trams. Junxions. Junxions is basically a city builder for people who don't care about placing cute parks and only want to fix traffic like an absolute maniac. Rather than building an entire city from scratch, this game zooms in on what really makes cities work. Or completely fall apart. Roads, railways, walkways, and intersections. The whole experience feels like you're playing as a transport engineer who's been handed a map and told, good luck, the city is already suffering. The building system is super flexible too. You're not locked into a strict grid, so you can create proper curves, multi-lane highways, rail crossings, pedestrian bridges, and those ridiculous multi-level junctions that look like spaghetti from above. And yes, the game really lives up to its name, because junction design is where most of the challenge happens. What makes junctions feel satisfying is how detailed the simulation is. Cars don't just teleport through each other like in simpler games. They react to congestion, follow traffic lights, slow down unrealistically, and create actual bottlenecks when your design is bad. Even better, everything connects, so if your train schedule blocks a crossing, suddenly the road backs up, which then affects pedestrians, which then turns your entire district into a slow-moving disaster. But the fun part is fixing it. You'll tweak lane layouts, adjust signal timing, redesign crossings, and use heat maps to hunt down exactly where the city is bleeding traffic. It's basically a giant puzzle game disguised as urban planning, and honestly, it looks dangerously addictive. Zlin City, Arc Moderna. Zlin City, Arc Moderna is a cozy little city builder where the main goal isn't money or survival, it's making your town look clean, stylish, and perfectly connected by rail. At its core, this is a diorama-style building game that focuses more on creativity than hardcore management. The whole vibe is inspired by functionalist architecture from the 1920s and 30s. So expect lots of clean lines, geometric buildings, and city layouts that feel neat and intentional. The game uses a grid-based system, but instead of feeling limited, it actually makes everything feel like you're carefully arranging pieces in a miniature model town. You aren't just dropping houses anywhere. You're designing blocks, districts, and little neighborhoods that look like they belong together. And since the visuals are a big part of the experience, the lighting, animations, and tiny details add up to make the city feel alive, even when it's small. But the real highlight is the train system. Railways aren't just decoration here. They're a huge part of how your city functions. You'll be laying tracks through crowded areas, building bridges, weaving routes through tight spaces, and connecting districts in a way that's both efficient and satisfying to watch. Seeing small locomotives smoothly run through your handcrafted network is honestly half the fun. Progression stays relaxed as well, with no punishing game over moments. Instead, the challenge comes from fitting everything neatly, solving little efficiency puzzles, and unlocking new buildings and decorations as your town grows. Tropico 7. Tropico 7 isn't just another sequel, it's a full upgrade. The grid is gone, curved roads are in, and now you can literally reshape the island however you want. The biggest change is how the game feels to build. Roads can now be placed in smooth curves, and buildings naturally snap into place along them, which makes your cities look way more believable. Like an actual tropical nation instead of a perfectly measured strategy map. And for the first time in the series, terrain isn't just decoration anymore. Tropico 7 introduces full-on terraforming, letting you flatten hills for massive industrial districts, carve out coastlines, or even create new land entirely. It's powerful, but also extremely expensive, so it becomes a real strategy choice rather than a free toy. On the simulation side, the game goes deeper by tracking citizens and goods more closely. Buildings now rely on proper catchment areas, meaning services like clinics, groceries, and entertainment actually need to be placed within realistic range. If people live too far away, they won't magically stay satisfied. Your public transport and city layout genuinely matter. Politics also get a major overhaul with the new council system, where faction leaders aren't just menu icons anymore. You actually deal with them directly. And if rebels show up, the military system finally lets you take direct control, making conflict feel more tactical and less random. Frostliner. Frostliner took the brutal survival pressure of Frostpunk and smashed it into the constant forward momentum of Snowpiercer. And honestly, it's a terrifying combo in the best way. Instead of building a city that slowly expands outward, you're building an entire civilization on a moving train. And the big twist is that your town can never stop. Your engine is basically your heart, your heater, and your ticking time bomb all at once. Every new carriage you attach, housing, farms, factories, armories, makes your train bigger and more powerful, but also heavier and harder to keep running. So you're constantly stuck in this stressful balance act of do I expand or do I survive? Heat is a huge deal as well. Cars that sit too far from the engine start freezing. People get sick, morale drops, and suddenly your workforce is collapsing while the world outside is basically an ice graveyard. On top of that, you're not just cruising in a straight line, you're navigating a strategic map, choosing routes through frozen mountains, abandoned stations, and dangerous junctions. Some paths offer rare resources, but they might come with disasters like moonfall debris smashing your tracks mid-run. And of course, the world is broken. You're not alone. Raiders, rival factions, and desperate survivors can attack your train, meaning you'll need armor plating, turrets, and repair drones just to keep your rolling city from being ripped apart. It's not about building perfection, it's about keeping the machine alive. Creator Chronicles. Creator Chronicles honestly sounds like the kind of management sim that starts off cozy, and then slowly turns into emotional damage simulator in the best way. At its core, you're running a guild, building up a village, and sending adventurers into dangerous dungeons. But the big twist is that your guild members don't behave like typical RPG units. They act more like real MMO players with fragile egos. If someone dies on a raid, they don't just respawn and try again. They literally rage quit the game and disappear from your roster. So suddenly, every dungeon run feels less like combat and more like babysitting a group of overconfident idiots who need constant emotional support. That's where the game gets interesting. Instead of brute forcing difficulty, you're encouraged to overlevel your members in easier areas, gear them up, and slowly build their confidence before throwing them into serious raids. It's basically like being a guild leader who's always a therapist. Meanwhile, your village is the real engine of growth. You build farms, workshops, and resource chains while your guild members take on day jobs like cooking, alchemy, mining, or fishing depending on their personality and skills. And the auction house adds a whole market flipping layer where you can snipe cheap items and sell crafted goods for profit. Combat is more about leadership than button mashing. You build party comps, review battle logs when things go wrong, and adjust strategy like a coach. All of it ties into the Codex progression system, making every profession feel useful. Cozy vibes, but with constant pressure. Northgard Battlegrounds. Northgard is officially entering its auto-battler era, and honestly, it kinda works. Northgard Battlegrounds is a brand new spin-off that swaps out the RTS micromanagement for a mix of turn-based city building and automatic battles, making it feel faster, cleaner, and way more replayable. Instead of rushing around in real time, you build your settlement one turn at a time, and the fun part is how much your village layout actually matters. This isn't just place buildings for resources, you'll need to think about adjacency bonuses, positioning, and efficiency, because your economy directly fuels your army. In a way, your town becomes your strategy board. Every structure you place helps shape what kind of warband you can create. At the end of each round, the game shifts into the auto-battler phase, where your clan fights against another player's army automatically. You're not controlling units directly, so the focus becomes building the smartest setup before the battle even begins. If you've recruited the right mix of warriors, shield bearers, or axe throwers, you'll get that satisfying moment of watching your plan actually work, or watching it collapse instantly. To keep each run unpredictable, there are God's Blessings, roguelike-style perks that can completely change your strategy mid-match. Add in returning clans like Wolf, Goat, and Bear, and you've got a game that feels competitive, quick, and super addictive. It's coming to Steam Early Access in 2026. Mandate Order. In Mandate Order, you're not playing as some unstoppable warlord with endless troops and resources. You're starting from nothing, surrounded by rivals and trying to build an empire during one of the bloodiest periods in Chinese history. And honestly, the scariest enemy isn't always another army, it's starvation. The game leans heavily into a bottom-up style of empire building, where your entire war machine depends on how well you manage your settlements. You begin on barren land, meaning your first battles aren't fought with swords, but with infrastructure. Farms, workshops, and granaries aren't just background buildings, they're the backbone of your entire empire. Resources like wood, iron, and grain need to be gathered, processed, and transported efficiently, because an army is useless if you can't actually supply spears, armor, and rations fast enough. Once your economy is strong, the focus shifts into large-scale warfare. Battles emphasize formations, terrain advantages, and smart positioning, where forests, hills, and choke points can turn a smaller force into a deadly threat. You'll also recruit officers inspired by historical generals, and their stats can influence morale, discipline, and how well your troops execute complex tactics. But Mandate Order doesn't let you ignore politics either. If you overwork your people or fail to maintain stability, revolts can explode and destroy you from within. Meanwhile, diplomacy lets you form alliances, demand tributes, and weaken rivals through manipulation. I hope you found this video helpful. Be sure to leave a comment below if any of these games caught your eye, or if there are other upcoming releases you'd like to hear about. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing for more gaming content in the future. Thanks for watching.